sounds from the Rhythm Underground. Welcome to the We Love Guitar Nerds podcast, your place for all things guitar. We have your interviews, we have your lessons, your boomer discussions, and your verbal rabble-rousings. So please hit subscribe, share, and like to join our constantly growing musical community. We Love Guitar Nerds. We introduced Dylan, was it Madar?
Madar, yeah.
Okay, I didn't screw it up. This is good. Dylan's a guitarist. He's also the guitar doctor at BCR Music in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. So thanks for doing this. What do we want to get your story? We want to get your story. You've been how long have you been playing guitar?
I've been seriously playing since I was about 12. Before that, I had fiddled around and banged on some stuff, but mom and dad were trying to steer me towards an easier life, I guess. So they said, "Why don't you try trombone?"
we understand. We understand.
Yeah. So eventually, I think I was watching I remember clearly. I've wanted a guitar since I was really little. Me and one of the guys in my band, we wrote songs when we were in like first grade together. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we always wanted instruments, and he got instruments around the time middle school, like sixth grade, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was begging my parents, "Come on, come on!" They're like, "Eh." And I remember watching the Freebird DVD with my dad.
Okay.
And Alan Collins with that Carina Explorer.
Uh-huh.
I was like, dude, that is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. Yes.
Please let me do that.
So did you start with an air guitar band?
Well, we had real guitars. I don't even know if they had strings on them though.
Okay, so it was air guitar.
Kind of air guitar,
Yeah.
But we had like a drum set with paper heads on it.
Yeah.
I had one of those.
I had a box. I had a refrigerator box that I made. I didn't even have drumsticks. They're dowel rods.
Oh, nice, dude.
Yeah, so dowel rods and buckets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny too, and I did since then. I've been doing it basically, up until now, where it's full time.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. So an easier life. So when you started really getting real with it, like when you were 11 or 12?
So yeah, around then they got me a teacher. I first took a lesson with a neighbor, like a friend of ours, and then and he was a drummer, so he was showing me some chords and stuff like that and some rhythms. But he's like, "But really, if this kid wants to, play blues and stuff like that, we got to get him someone else." So then
is that what you wanted to do as a young kid?
Well, I was really into I was actually really into the early kind of 50s rock and roll stuff.
Okay.
Dwayne Eddy was one of my favorite guitar players.
As a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's partly because I grew up mostly with my grandparents.
Okay.
So I was really familiar with the entire Louis Prima catalog.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis, Conway Twitty, the early country stuff, the early 50s rock and roll stuff, Bobby Darin, all that stuff. So I was really familiar with that. And then right around the time I got the guitar, and before then I had also listened to some like pop punk stuff, like really young kid stuff. It was on MTV at the time and all that,
Are you talking about like Green Day?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, dude. Dookie was like my favorite in elementary school.
Yeah. Should be.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Should be.
And so I was kind of like interested in playing that style of music. But then I met some buddies in middle school, some other musicians, guys who I'm still friends with, I still play with today.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all like, "You've heard of Led Zeppelin, right?" And like I had already been a Skynyrd fan and a Queen fan, but I had never gotten into Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was like, okay. So then they were showing me some of that stuff and AC/DC.
Yeah.
I had never really listened to them before. I met my friends, So there was some then that kind of 70s rock and roll got involved. But yeah, I was mostly interested in learning like punk and some of the 50s rock and roll stuff.
Okay.
And then I met Quentin.
Of course.
And he got me introduced to rockabilly, and that was like, yeah, this is exactly this is exactly what I like.
The
Yeah.
melding of jazz, country, all kinds of things. Yes.
Yeah. And probably around 13 or 14, I saw Lee Rocker, the bass player from the Stray Cats.
Yep.
I
You
saw
seen
his
with
band
Quentin?
at the San Diego Fair.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
that changed my life. I was like, yeah, these guys are playing Tellys and White Falcons, and I was like, yeah,
Right.
this is
Is
really cool. So that was the style I got into then.
okay. So these first bands that you formed, these were all high school bands like Claptrap.
Yeah, well, Claptrap was with my buddies when we were like 12.
Oh,
We did
okay.
some birthday parties, stuff like that. Um, yeah, that was we just did covers of stuff we liked, and we had a couple
Is that the
originals.
punk or the rockabilly?
It was kind of actually more like rock and roll. Like when you got all of us together, it was kind of just a seven like classic rock, thing.
Okay.
But it wasn't very good. I mean, we
Yeah.
were 12.
Well, you're not supposed to be
Um,
very good when you start out. The fact that you
yeah, and then
started out.
I did another classic rock band with some buddies after that. Um, Actually, Claptrap, I put that band together with my friends. I've always been the kind of dude that gets everybody in the room for practice,
Okay.
and and I was such a jerk. They actually had me leave. They were like, "Get the hell out of here." So I
So
was like,
they
"No
fired
problem."
you from your own band?
They fired me, and I was a dick. We became friends again like a year later, you know, middle school shit.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. And then I ended up playing with some other dudes that I had met in high school, I think, or
Okay.
middle school. And we did a little band together. We played a Chameleon, opened up. We might have opened up for Sugarcoat
Okay.
because we were doing that around that time.
Okay.
I was friends with Sugarcoat. My brother was their roadie for a while. My sister was with the bass player for a while, so they were kind of like family to us at the
Yeah.
time. And I worked with Chris Altland up at Roseville.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was when you were around 17 years old.
Yeah, yeah. So that was all kind of from middle school to then. I was in those two bands, and
So
I
when
did
did you
some
meet
other stuff
Quentin?
too. Oh, I met Quentin when I was 12. Yeah, so they got
Okay.
me lessons with him like almost right away, and
Okay.
I had took lessons with him probably up until the time I was about 16,
Okay. Okay.
and then he had me start. Basically he was like, "Well, these are all the modes. That's everything I got for you. Now you have to figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
Get your own voices and go from these are all the scales, and this is the way I've broken up the guitar and
Yep.
handed it to you this way. Good luck." And he
Yeah.
said, and then he had me teaching some of his beginner students.
Yeah. That's wonderful. It's
Yeah.
good advice.
We did that for a while. So,
Beginner students are like the hardest ones to teach.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
for a teacher, those are the most challenging because they don't know anything.
Mm.
You can't assume anything. So the
No, and you kind of separate some chaff in there, right? Like it's one of those things where it's like, all right, I got a new student, and you sit down, and you almost know immediately, like, is this kid gonna go for it?
yeah.
Um, and lately, if I take a student, it's been one of those things where it's like, do you want to be a guitar player?
Yeah.
And they go, yeah. So like, really? And they go, yeah. I go, okay, well then I'll teach you.
Okay.
But if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just you want
Most
to
of
learn
them don't.
songs,
Most of them not like guitar players like we know them.
right?
Yeah,
And,
it's
and
a
that's what
different
I'm
world.
interested in. I want to pass that knowledge along.
Yes, yes.
Someone else will take your money to learn a G chord.
It's your legacy trip. Yeah, yeah,
It's not even that. It's just like, hey, you're paying me because I work really hard in practice.
yeah.
You're paying me to give that to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it to you, but I'm not going to give it to you if you don't want it.
Yeah.
So,
Or if you don't respect it either.
yeah, it's kind of a waste of both of our time.
Yeah,
So,
if you don't respect it, this is the best stuff you have. So, yep. So you do teaching.
not a lot. I mean, again, it's kind of one of those things where someone will say, "Hey, do you teach?" And I'll go, and they'll say, "Well, my kid already plays trumpet and piano, and they really want to get into guitar." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, all right, I'll talk to this." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
One of those things. But if it's like, "Hey, I got a 7-year-old who wants to pick up the guitar," I'm like, there's a bunch of other people that want to
Yeah,
make that
yeah,
money, that
yeah.
do it full time and all that. Give
Uh-huh.
it to them.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm more interested in kind of fixing them and playing them at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah. So you started uh the whole fixing them and playing them, being the guitar doctor when you started that path when you were around 17, or was it earlier?
Yeah, actually, it probably was around then. I mean, when you're a kid, you always mess around with your stuff, and I mostly did more breaking than I did fixing of my instruments when I was
Yeah.
young. Um, but I got kind of lucky. I had some odd jobs, and then Chris from Sugarcoat, the bass player, was like, "Look, dude, you can come around and hang out at Roseville. I'll pay you whatever minimum wage was, clean up, talk to people, teach lessons. I'll teach you how to work on stuff." So I got to start working in a guitar shop then,
Hmm.
and that was cool.
Yeah.
Him and Dave Patterson were up there, and they were showing me some things. It's good. I was doing restrings and wasn't doing any soldering yet, adjusting truss rods, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Um, just simple things.
So that was in your late teens. So where did you go from there? So I know you had a side thing that were a guitar player in bands like
Yeah,
Derry Miller and
yeah. So that happened around that time because I specifically remember leaving Roseville to go to the audition for that band.
okay.
And when I showed up for that audition, there was, a dude there that looked like his right hand worked really good, if you know what I mean. It seemed like they had a guy. There was someone not in the band, an older fella who was watching the audition. I'm like, what's this guy doing here? Is this someone's dad? And they're like, nah, he's our check dude. Okay. So this is something I want to get into.
Hmm.
Then, getting in with Derry and I became like best friends. I was the best man at his wedding this last year.
Hmm.
So it was immediately like, oh yeah, this is the thing. And we had someone backing us, putting money into the recordings and the merch and all that.
Hmm.
So like, that's cool. It wasn't anything crazy, don't get me wrong. I don't want it to sound like something it wasn't. But we had a little bit of help.
Yeah.
We did
Well,
work with
no,
Bobby
I
Gentilo.
know you because of that band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Most
that's how
people
far
do,
back. Yeah.
which is maybe unfortunate because it
No.
feels like it was a couple people ago. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
feels like it was a lifetime ago or
Well,
two.
it probably
But
was. What
yeah,
was that?
but
2015.
I think, and now when I was filling that questionnaire out, I'm sitting there going like, oh, when
Yeah.
did that happen? I had to think like, I
I
I
remember
think I
from
was actually
my rural
still in high
radio.
school. What's that?
There was a in Southern York County. There was a yearly festival called My Rural Radio.
Yeah,
That
Mike Mails.
yeah, that Mike brought in all these uh,
Yes.
original music. You know, ri- he was
Yeah, those were
highlighting
always really
original
fun.
music.
We always look forward to those sorts of things. We had
Yeah,
friends coming with us, like especially when we did like the Genesis Fest and stuff like that. Where it was,
I was there too.
yeah, dude, that was a crazy time.
Yeah, playing 5 string bass with a bluegrass like with
Oh, nice.
it was the bluegrass American holler.
Oh yeah, Jeff was Jeff
Yeah,
playing with you?
Jeff Stike or
Yeah.
no, what Jeff? What's his name? The mandolin player.
Um, I
Kid.
think he played dobro a lot.
Yeah, Jeff Hostetter was there. Yep. But
Setter,
We
that's
had
what it
Jeff
was.
Kidd on mandolin.
Oh, so half the band was Jeff's.
Yeah, well, he was wonderful. Jeff Kidd's like he's first rate. So that was
Cool, man.
but
Yeah,
yeah. So yes.
yeah, good
So
times. But so when I got involved with Derry, I was like 17, did the audition. They liked everything. We were, then they called me a couple days later and were like, hey, why don't you come put some tracks down at the studio in Columbia? So I went down to his right coast,
of course.
Bobby Gentilo,
Yep.
and recorded with him. And then we did another album after that with Bobby and did some stuff down in Tennessee. But yeah, working with Derry was fun. We did that for a good amount of years.
Yep. So
But
you traveling all over, getting fans and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
so I remember being like a senior or a junior in high school and not going to school because I was going to New York to play with Derry, something like that. Like so we were doing that kind of stuff. But then, Mark DeRose?
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, funny right now on my bench, we'll get to this later, is a telly that I'm putting together for Mark DeRose. I just
Okay.
put this together this year.
Yeah.
He asked for a custom blondie, so I said, all right.
Okay.
But yeah, so he got us introduced to Deggy Entertainment. And then we started doing the college circuit,
Okay.
and that was good time, good money.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
I think we kind of got road worn doing it because it
Mm-hmm.
was a bit of a bear sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but good nonetheless.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. So, how did you come? After all that, after Derry, you came back. What was your plan after high school? Did you have a plan?
um, no, no, I didn't. I mean, the plan was,
To do
so
more
I
of the
got with him
same.
when I was 17, and we stopped playing together maybe when I was 23. So the plan was always just doing that. That was
Yeah.
our plan all the time. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
There's no other option.
There's
you
no
know,
second. Yes.
yep. Otherwise, hang me. That was kind of the mentality.
I have the same.
And around probably 19, I started doing odd jobs at Chameleon Club.
Okay.
And by the time I was 23, I think I might have been bartending there.
Okay.
So, like 19, I was loading in bands, and then they'd send me home at like 1 or 4 p.m. You
Okay.
know, I'd never get to see what happened after load in.
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe 2021, I just started figuring out, like, I would like go down to the Lizard Lounge and just start wiping something down so no one would bother me until the show started. And I did that enough times until they started letting me run beer.
Okay.
Did that enough times until they were like, well, we might as well put a shirt on you. And then I bounced, did beer, all those sorts of things.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually they were like, well, you'd be a pretty good bartender. So then I bartended for a few years,
Okay.
basically until I left, which was right around the end of it, maybe a year
Okay.
or two before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that
So,
was kind of my transition then. I was like, all right, well, I'm not touring anymore. I'll just bartend full time. And that's kind of what I had, that job, and I had a day job too.
what was your
So I
day
didn't
job?
play music that few years. Well, during
Okay.
that time, I was delivering mattresses. I was hauling mattresses upstairs.
So
That was
didn't you have a band in between all of this? Like, weren't you jamming with people in between all of this? Like
I
after
did a
Derry?
couple. I did a couple.
Didn't you have something with Keith Weiser?
I don't think so.
Okay. I might be hallucinating.
Maybe,
It was like a
maybe,
blues band.
maybe. I don't know. I might be slipping my mind. I did. I did. Well, after Derry and I broke, like when that band broke up, Derry, neither Derry or I really played music very much.
Okay.
Like we kind of took a break
Okay.
for a few years. And what got me back into it is one of the dudes at Chameleon Club was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do a Tom Petty cover band for a Halloween show."
Okay.
And he's like, "Do you want to do guitar?" And I'm like, "Sure, that shouldn't be too hard." And then after that, it was like, "Oh, I'm going to build up my pedal board again. I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
yeah, yeah.
put
Yeah,
some
yeah.
pickups in my
Sucked you
guitar."
in.
Oh, dude, it was like literally one practice, and I was like, "Yeah, now I remember now."
Yeah, yeah. This is why.
So yeah, so then um I started thinking, I was talking to one of the sound guys that worked at Chameleon Club. I was like, man, I think I want to put a band together. And he was like, okay, well, maybe I'd be interested in that. I was like, do you play bass? And he's like, yeah, I played bass for a while. Um, he was in a band called Testosteroso. No, it's they were pretty good. Lancaster, kind of a comedy act.
Okay.
Um, they have a few albums and stuff too. Good group of guys. They're really really fun dudes. And he was a manager at Guitar Center in Lancaster too for a while. Cody Smith.
Okay.
So I was talking to him, like maybe I want to start this band, and he's like, all right, well I'll play bass. Like okay. And then I said, it'd be really fun if I could just go jam somewhere, play blues all night. He's like, oh dude, we've got one down in High Spire. Like okay, so then him and I would go out to High Spire. He would run sound for the thing, and I would be playing with the dudes up on on the stage doing the blues jam, Central PA Blues
Was that
Society.
champions?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. So that's kind of what brought me all back into it, and then I just put a dream team together. And I
Okay.
had to, I was like, maybe Cody, do you play guitar? He's like, yeah. I'm like, do you have a guitar? He's like, I got a Les Paul Custom. I'm like, oh yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, yeah,
So like it was me and Cody, and then I got my buddy Flat to play bass, and I really wanted this one drummer, Ian. You know Ian Corneli from Stonewall Vessels, and he was in Big Fat Meanies as well. These are
I know.
Lancaster.
I heard that band. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ian was at the time I met him. He was playing for just about every band in town.
Yeah.
It was like he was the only drummer.
Yeah.
And I was working at Chameleon Club. I had seen lots of the local drummers playing every night, and I was like, "That's my dude.
Yeah.
I just gotta get in with him." And I knew him, from serving him drinks at the gigs and stuff. Well, I'm like asking him every time I see him, "Hey, dude, you wanna come play in my band, dude? We're just gonna do some country stuff, gonna do some, rock and roll stuff, playing bars, make $100, whatever." He's like, I can't. Well, then my one buddy was in a like hardcore. I don't know. I called it like I don't know. It was like old man hardcore. It was like real. I don't know,
Is
man.
there a young man
It just was
hardcore? Is there such a thing?
I think there is. That's how he described it, like grandpa metal or something like that. But it was, it was pretty cool. It wasn't really my thing, but they needed a bass player for a tour, and Ian was playing drums in this band. I was like, well, maybe I can hang out with Ian enough to get him to actually like me, and then he
Yeah.
won't be able to say no.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. I went on tour. We had a bunch of shenanigans together, and I played this hardcore tour with him. And I was like, "Come on, dude, you got to do my thing."
Yeah.
And by the end of the tour, he had agreed. He was like, "All right, I'm in."
Okay. That's wonderful. That band
Yeah,
was
so I
what?
got in. What's that?
What band was that?
That's this current band I'm in.
Okay.
Um, and but it took a little while to like kind of form up, and then I had to go dairy hunting. So I was like, I need a piano player, and I want a honky tonk piano player, and I know where he's at. I just don't know if he's still playing piano. So I went and found him, and we kind of rekindled our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about a couple weeks after that he started sending me original music. And as soon as the band got together and we jammed, we were going to do a Halloween show at Chameleon. So that was going to be our only show, and maybe we were going to do some bars, no original stuff. But Derry shows up with 4 original tunes. We all love them. We're like, all right, well now this is a band. So, it just kind of happened that way.
That's Flapjack Jones.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. So that's still going on.
Oh yeah, that's still going on. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
We don't play a lot, but
Yeah.
we released an album back in November, a full length, and we've been working on that for the entire 5 years we've been a band.
Okay.
So, pretty cool.
Yeah,
It's
that's
fun.
wonderful. So when did you get associated with the guys up at BCR? Was this Greg F. and Platzer that brought you in?
Greg, MF, and Platzer.
MF and Platzer.
The Grunkle Greg.
Yes.
So well, I met him when I was 17. One of my pickups went dead. He sold me a couple Seymours, threw it in my guitar, and then he sold me some pedals after that. And we became friends. I brought some of my buddies in there to buy acoustics and pedals and whatnot. So we kind of became, familiar and became friends after that.
Mm-hmm.
He always shouted at me when I walk into the shop, that sort of stuff.
Same.
And then, yeah. And then I started, now this was more recently, this was right maybe 3 years before the pandemic. I started driving truck. And I was driving truck for a while. And then, not big truck, like a 12-foot stake body. I didn't need a CDL, but it was right up to that point. Like I would be driving 24,000-pound loads or 2, 3, 9, 9, 9, 9, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was driving for a while, and pandemic hit, and everything seems closed down, but my company filled the paperwork to become essential, and none of the guys are working on the job sites, but they're still sending me down there to go unload. And then I started installing stuff, and I'm like, I don't know if this is really my job. I'm more of a driver, not, whatever. In either case, the company I worked for was great. The people were great, but I just said, I don't know if this is my thing. And my girlfriend, she was like, maybe you should get back into guitar work. That's not a bad idea, honey. So I called a buddy who owned a music store. He owns a music store up in Ephrata, and that's called Music on Main.
Okay.
And my buddy Blake, you know Blake Hillard?
I don't.
He's a good dude. He does like trumpet and horn repair, all sorts of other instruments too. Really good guy. Has a cool little brick and mortar shop where he teaches lessons, stuff like that. Anyway, I called him. We were playing in Red Hill Road together. It's like a bluegrass band that he started, and he goes, "Why don't we start, this time? Come work with me, see what happens." So I got back into it right at the end of the pandemic, right when we could start opening up music stores again.
Yeah.
And I was just working through his repair backlog. He was showing me how to do some stuff. And I was also kind of working the counter, just helping him out. And then it kind of got slow there. In either case, I started trying to do that. I basically quit the truck driving job. I was still doing both, but then I quit the truck driving job and kind of went into working on guitars. But one day I was driving the truck and I knew the end of my time was coming. I might have been a month or two away from when I was leaving because I wanted to give them time to find a new driver.
Yeah.
And Platzer called me out of the blue. And he's like, "I hear you're working on guitars." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "What if I told you my apprentice was quitting?" Okay. He goes, "What if I told you I need someone at PCR starting next week?" Okay. It was just like,
Yeah.
Greg calls and just says, "This is what you're doing. This is what's going to happen. See you then." That kind of thing. Like, okay.
Was he still at BCR?
He was still at BCR.
Okay.
It was right in the transition phase. So we knew that he was selling it to Jared, but it hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And so Greg, I guess, still had some hiring power, and thank the Lord he did, because I really love it there.
Yeah.
In either case, he called me to come up. I met the guy that was leaving, and Greg started training me. And as soon as this guy starts teaching me how to work on guitars, it was like a light bulb went off, dude. I was like, finally, everything makes sense to me. Like the way he explained it to me, he showed me how to, you can read all the Dan Erlewine you want, but when you've got a guy like that literally showing you up, just like this, just like that, no need to measure, here we go, it makes the thing so much faster and efficient and easier to understand, and just a wealth of knowledge to have.
Absolutely.
But it was still an apprenticeship program. So like if you look at the local tech schools or Lutheran schools, you're probably talking $10,000-$12,000 a year.
Okay.
Something like that. Maybe a little less if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Greg offered me something about the third of that cost.
Okay.
I didn't have it, but I did have an old 1977 Jeep that I just bought. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll sell that.
Okay.
So I sold my old Jeep, gave Greg some money, bought another car, kind of bought a bunch of tools, set myself up.
Yeah.
And went in full time, dude. I quit the truck driving and started working at BCR.
Yeah.
And I've been there ever since. Greg handed the company over to Jared. Jared asked to keep me on. And really, dude, I mean, I can't even express enough how much I love those guys.
Yeah.
And how much fun it is to work at that shop that I've been going to since I was a kid. And really it's kind of like getting my job at Chameleon Club. Felt this a very similar way. Like, man, I've always wanted to hang out here as much as I could. Yeah. And now I get to,
Well, it's an institution. Both stores are an institution.
Yes, exactly.
Like the Chameleon Club and BCR.
And that's always the kind of thing I like to be involved with. Like when you go in and you're enamored by it. Yeah,
it's
when
not just
you work
a store. It's not just a store.
Right. But and when you're working there, that sparkle's gonna wear off a little bit. But it never really goes away. It's still like every morning when I get up, I'm so stoked to go into work.
Yeah.
So, and that was 3 years ago I started there, I think, maybe 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and actually, I think we were still like kind of shut down. Not really. It was like um, limited hours. Everyone's throwing hand sanitizer all over each other, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And they were talking about bringing someone else in. I'm like, dude, well, my roommate has been laid. He was a sound guy, full time sound guy. My roommate and the guitar player in my band. So I'm like, dude, we got to get my buddy in here. And they were like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. And him and I were walking down to the corner store one night. And I was like, hey, you be interested in working at BCR? He's like, what? Yeah. All right, let's go. So then we got Cody involved.
What's he
And
do?
he is he's sales staff, but
Okay.
his be talking to customers, selling stuff, but also he puts stuff up on Reverb, writes up the little articles
Mm-hmm.
about them. So Jared would be our owner, Sam's our shop manager, and Cody is kind of our staff,
Okay.
sales guy.
Yeah.
You'll see him on most of the BCR posts. He's usually the guy holding the guitars.
Okay.
He's our model. So
Okay.
he picture a Cody sells the guitar. That's the
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Yep. Yep. I support.
Yeah.
It's those kinds of shops that to me make the music community. Okay, I'm more,
I mean, you're absolutely right.
far more about them, and I'm not gonna um, outwardly badmouth the big chains, but they're.
Yeah.
But we know.
We can talk about the empire all we want.
Yeah, they're not for the community. They're not for the community, and it's like they want to know you as a person. They want to have a long relationship with
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
I mean,
it's a different thing.
I
BCR in
I
Lemoyne.
love being able. What's that?
BCR in Lemoyne,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. Check them out
Yep.
online and on
And
Reverb.
if you need setups, I'm glad to do them.
Yep.
And anything else, a lot of times if it's something crazy, I'll just take it over to Grunkle Greg and we'll work
Yep.
on it together.
Yeah.
The dude's super cool, and so Greg is still involved in repair.
Yeah, I hear
If
you get with
anything,
him like on a weekly basis.
pretty much every Wednesday, unless something else is going on.
Yeah.
We get together for a few hours.
Yep.
And we work on mostly right now. It's been headstock repairs over the last year or two. I'll be getting into like frets and fretboards and fretting,
Yep.
slotting, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully soon. That'll be the
Yeah.
next. For me, anyway, that's what I'm trying to get into. But
Yeah.
whatever he decides, really.
Yeah.
And
That's a
it's kind of
wonderful
one of
thing
those
he's
things where
got.
he's like,
That's a wonderful thing he's got.
"Oh, dude, his basement shop is really cool."
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, he's
Yeah, you been in there?
yeah, he doctored one of my Paul Reed Smiths. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I got stuff
He meant-
for him. I got plans.
Cool. Cool.
So
Yeah. Dude, he's yeah, it's at that I really owe a lot to that dude, and at least the mention of the gift he gave me by getting this business full time and giving
yes,
me a job.
yes, and showing you the best. Here's the thing: if it is, uh, that's his life's work.
Yeah.
So that is that is probably the best, like the best thing he can show you. That's the thing that he put the most love in his life, other than his motorcycles.
Yeah. You're right.
But you know
You're
what I
right
mean?
though.
He
That's a
put a lot of
very
love into that. And it's like that
yeah.
is so it's like that that's cool. That's cool.
That was one of those things he said, you know, basically when he hired me, it was like, well, you do that Travis picking stuff, right? I said, yeah. And he said, how'd you learn that? I said, I just sat down and watched a video of Tommy Emmanuel explain how to do it.
Yeah.
And then I did it until it worked, until the thumb started doing its own job.
Yeah.
Like, Chet said, you learn the thumb, you learn how to do the thumb part,
Yeah.
and then you forget it exists.
Yeah.
And that's how you do the rest of the tune.
It just, yep.
Greg goes, well, if you can sit down and do that, you can learn how to, you have the, basically the determination to work on guitars.
Yeah.
It's in
Which
there,
is
that like laser focus. and him and I kind of really jive on the guitars we like. We split off a little bit when we get into Floyd Rose territory.
Okay.
All right, he's all about that stuff too. Like he likes,
Is he?
I mean, it's not his favorite thing,
I was gonna say he's
but
Mr. Les Paul and he's Mr.
yes,
Gibson guy.
but he'll still say, I need a Les Paul with a Kaler on it.
Yeah.
Right. That's something you won't catch coming out of me. I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be a weird day.
Well, for you it'd be a
You know,
Bigsby.
yes, I'll put a Bigsby on everything.
Yeah,
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 now
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
and he probably hates Bigsby's. So that's
So what
probably the
here
only
here
thing.
for me it would be have one of each
Yeah, there you
because
go.
in other words they do different things. They're different tools.
They do. They do.
Yes.
Um,
You never get your
we
Hendrix
really
on.
we both have a love for the old arch tops. And we really just like we're like school kids when we see that kind of stuff come through, and it's great. So it really just made sense, I think, to both of us when we started hanging out and
Hmm.
then continuing to do the apprenticeship, which he says right now I'm not even his apprentice, I'm just some kid that hangs around.
Yeah.
Because my apprenticeship was only supposed to be a year.
Yeah.
And, I if he asked me, hey, do the frets on this guitar for me, and it's his customer guitar,
Yeah.
gladly. Anything, like I'll do some sanding for him. I'll help organize his shop, whatever he wants, and as long as I can be in that vicinity
Yeah.
and gain some of that knowledge
Learning.
that he's literally just
Yeah.
oozing.
And he looks over
So
everything you do. It's like when
yeah,
that's part of the gig. So
definitely.
yeah.
And it's funny because I mean, my eyes will say, no, that neck is straight, and I'm looking at it, and he goes, you got a little more room in there. Like he can see things that I won't yet.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've seen that guy call out headstock repairs on photos from Reverb that there'd be no way you could tell unless like I don't
Yeah.
know.
The repair work he did for Justin, you can't even tell that anything was
Oh my
broken.
gosh, that guitar, dude, that was crazy, right?
That
And what a cool thing where the dude just has like the kind of faith to go like it'll work itself out, and
yeah.
people start throwing money at the repair. Like, wow,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Sometimes humans
It's
can
a good
surprise
work.
you.
It's a good work. Not everybody
Yeah,
understands it. Like everybody we're talking about is a personality. So people have
yeah,
opinions about it, but it's like we know the real. We know the real.
yeah.
So
I mean,
that was
yeah,
the
you
good
were
work.
talking about Quentin too. That
Yeah.
guy's a personality. You've seen his
You don't have to tell
shows?
me.
It's phenomenal.
You don't
The
have to
dude
tell
loves
me.
it, Like,
I love him. I do love him.
yeah.
But there's been times in our life, and he will admit this, that we came to blows. And
Oh, really?
and I don't come to blows with anybody.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
but but I
Yeah.
but after everything is said and done, he might have been right.
Yeah. Hey, dude. I don't
Yeah, he
know.
might have been right.
I don't know what in my kind of karmic wheelhouse said. You're gonna spend a lot of your life with Quentin Jones and Greg Platzer. I'm glad it
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
And those two dudes, as I think, anytime someone knows that much and knows that many people, you get whatever. I don't care.
Hmm.
Both of those guys helped shape me into a guitar player and a repair tech,
Hmm.
and someday to be a luthier. Um, so
Yeah,
I have to give them lots of credit for me
absolutely.
personally.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah.
So Dylan is again, I'm gonna say it, BCR Music in Lemoyne. It's like in that street going into Lemoyne. You can't miss
300
it.
South 3rd Street.
Say that again.
300 South 3rd Street.
Okay, so I will put the address in the description of this video, and um, he is in the band Flapjack Jones and the Bender Bros,
Oh yeah. A
and you
home
do all
outfit.
kinds of what the kind of country. How would
We
you
do
describe it again?
well, we do a lot of Allman Brothers stuff.
Okay.
We like that sort of thing. we try and stay away from stuff you'd hear on the radio on the way to the gig.
Okay. Okay. Good.
So instead of doing like Sweet Home Alabama, we'll do Working for MCA.
Okay.
And
So
so
it's
like just
kind of a Southern Rocky kind of thing.
yeah, a little bit of Southern rock, but we do a good bit of originals. Honestly, guys, check out Spotify or Apple, whatever. Flapjack Jones just did a full length record called Whistle Through the Woods.
Okay.
Go from track 1 to the end. That's the way it's meant to be listened to, like an old record.
Yes.
And
You're an
check
old
that out.
soul.
That's our
How
sound.
old are you anyway?
It's a mystery. No, I'm 31.
You're an old soul.
Yeah, I have been told
I'm old,
that.
but you're an old soul. But that's a good thing. I like old
Someday I'll
souls.
be old and an old soul. That's fine.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Thanks so much, Dylan.
Dude, thanks for having me on, Rod. It was fun.
See you all.
Later, brother.